Hi, all. This is Karen Allen from the Hub. Eugenie is sharing some samples of lectures and classes that we offer here at Trinity Health Hub. The 30-minute coaching session you're about to hear is from the Hub's Off the Grid series on medicine of the people when it's just us. Heads up, this class is a heavy one, but something all of us should know how to do. To break the news of a death to someone in an off-the-grid scenario, you may need this. So listen up and check the show notes for references. The Hub offers live and stream-on-demand training, connection, and inspiration for homeopaths all around the world. Drop by our website, www.trinityhealthhub.com, or you can find us on social media on Instagram and Facebook, Trinity Health Hub. We hope that you enjoy this session, and we look forward to seeing you on the Hub if this is the kind of training that you're interested in. This session is one that is specific for off the grid, but also actually for any of us as helpers, carers, healers, practitioners. These are all important things that all of us should know how to do under any circumstances. It's just that in off-the-grid scenarios, we have to take a more active role. So again, all of these first sessions, what we've been doing is getting ready to be there in that first 72 hours before the cavalry arrives. Anytime there is some kind of off-the-grid scenario, there's a wildfire, there's a tornado, your car rolls down an embankment into the woods, and it takes a couple days for somebody to find you. We have to get through that first 24, 48, 72 hours. So all of the things we've been talking about so far and will be talking about for the next several sessions is how do we get through that first 3 days on our own before people who are experts at this can arrive. So today we're talking about having tough conversations about somebody who's died. So again, we've had this with each session. We want to make sure that, this is reliable guidance, but we're not saying in every scenario, this is all you need to know. We're just saying this is reliable guidance that can help you here. Okay. So what happens when you're off the grid? The title of this class is Off the Grid, Medicine of the People When It's Up to Us. And off the grid means it's up to us. Normally in life, we have all these people around us who do the jobs that we might think, oh, I don't want to do that. The police and the paramedics are the ones that pull the bleeding people out of cars. And the farmers are the ones that kill the animals. And when wires are down, there are electricians to do that. And when somebody is near death or has just died, there are chaplains or doctors or social workers or somebody to convey that news. But in any kind of off-the-grid scenario, we need to be prepared to do a lot of things that normally we would never do. And as we prepare for this, we remember our choice in session 1. I choose to step forward and take action when there is some sort of off-the-grid scenario, emergency event, to the extent that I am one of the peeps who has the capacity to take action. I'm not wounded, I'm not unconscious. I want to be one of those people who is out there helping. Part of the issue here is that it's super unfamiliar. Most of us have never been in an emergency scenario like a flood that happened in North Carolina, in the Appalachians took out a valley, or the fires in Northern California or other places, tornadoes that, rip through a town. And when these things are happening, um, there are life-threatening or life no longer kind of situations that we have to interact about. We talked last time about getting consent for care and how sometimes somebody is right there where floodwaters are rising and you have to move them. So sometimes there's urgent permission or urgent action that you need to take. But sometimes it goes beyond that, and we actually have to be ready to have conversations about things that are tragic. So, one of the things that we choose when we say we are in service to this situation and we choose to take action is that we have to talk to ourselves about it and we have to talk to others about it. And we got to prepare for this because trust me, guys, the things that come off the top of your head in these scenarios might be lines out of comedy movies or something you saw somebody else say once that was a bad idea. If hard to hear news like somebody is very seriously wounded or they've passed away is delivered poorly, there's no way to undo that. There's no rewind on telling somebody that someone has died. And so we have to be ready for it. So as we commit to being in these unfamiliar situations in service, I want to encourage self-talk, and I would like you to commit these phrases to yourself. Put them on your bathroom mirror and say them to yourselves many times every day. Put them on your desktop, your computer desktop, and read them over. Before, which is the era that all of us right now are in, I choose preparation, action, compassion. I can choose to be in service. And then during the event, when things are overwhelming, remind yourself that you are not alone and invite help. Now, some people have a spiritual basis. So whatever their ideation is about God or about religion or about spiritual guidance, invite that. If you're somebody who doesn't have that mindset, then invite the vital force to guide you. Here, as people who use energy medicine, we know that that's a thing. So whatever way it is that you engage, when this feels overwhelming, remind yourself, I am not alone. I'm never alone. I invite whatever to guide me. And then afterwards, uh, you have to accept that it went down the way that it did. I offered my best efforts. You might be thinking, wow, I did great and I'm the top of the world. Well, okay. So you did your best efforts, you accept your humanity and all of its strengths and all of its weaknesses, and then you release it. You do not want to hold on to the trauma that you witnessed or experienced as part of this thing. So these are before, during, and after phrases that I want you to get really comfortable with. And now let's talk about when we have to talk to someone about a person who died. Remember, the most likely people you're going to be hanging with in these kinds of scenarios are your neighbors, the people who lives across the way, down the street, on the farm next door, wherever. These will be, they won't always be strangers. Sometimes they will, but sometimes they'll be neighbors. And we may have to have tough conversations with them. And you may have seen this happen on a television show or in a movie, and it seems like people are so calm, cool, and collected, explaining this is what happened. But the reality is that nobody you're talking to hears anything after the word dead. So you have to set up the whole conversation before that happens. And the best way for us to do that is to look at how surgeons are trained to talk to the family if somebody dies during the surgery. So it is universally accepted that the person in charge is the one that has to tell the family and the community. That might be you, might not be you, but if it is you, you got to be ready. And the person who's bearing the bad news should never be there alone, because they may have to go on and bear bad news to other people about other things or do whatever they're doing. You should always do this with somebody else who can sit with the family for longer, who can stay with them, who can provide continuity. So it's not like you walked up, said, so-and-so died, and off you go. And the way that you communicate this absolutely impacts the way that people experience grief. So if you communicate it well, it can help them work through their process. If you communicate it poorly, it can greatly complicate process. There's a link here for a quite nice article from Louisiana State University Med School, where they are coaching residents and interns on how to have these kinds of conversations. So first, you got to plan it. You got to be ready. For me, when I have to have a tough conversation, sometimes I have to talk to people who are dying. I put my hand on my heart and I choose to be calm and I breathe. Now, you may have some other thing that you do. You know, some people open their arms as they prepare, or they feel their feet on the floor. Whatever it is that helps you be calm, you need that. So the first thing you need to, either in an emergency situation with strangers, you may not know this person's name. So you got to find out from somebody, who is this? Who are their peeps? Learn or repeat to yourself the name of the deceased. You never want to refer to a body. You always, this is a person. So you want to use the name. And then review the necessary statements we're going to talk about in your mind. And when possible, when you go to talk to somebody, you don't want blood on your clothes. You know, you may have been there doing CPR for somebody who was bleeding. You don't want to go tell somebody that they died while that person's blood is all over you. So think about the optics before you approach somebody to talk to them. Prepare yourself to slow down. You may be all amped up about this. Slow, clear statements is what we're looking for. And then prepare to listen. Don't improv. Don't babble because you're nervous. Don't redirect into other things because you can't endure the presence of their grief. Your job is to be there for those people. And this can happen just as much in somebody's clinical practice. So, phrases for death, what you say and how you say it. So first of all, you want to gather the relevant audience. You want to have one conversation. You never want to tell like one of the parents that the child has died and then leave that parent to tell the other parent. That's a horrible thing. You want all the peeps together. You introduce yourself, even if they know you. Hi, this is so-and-so here. And then confirm, ask them their names if you don't know them, or welcome them and say their names if you do know them. Sit down if possible. I mean, depending on the scenario, it may not be possible, but it keeps people from keeling over. And it also sends the message of, we're here with you. We're not jumping up and running. So maintain eye contact. Look people in the eye. Lean forward just a little bit. Do those physical body language things that say, I'm engaged here. And then you start with, I'm afraid I have some bad news. Now, if this were a hospital setting, you would ask these people first, what do you know about George's condition? And they would say, well, we knew he was having surgery, or he was in stage 4 cancer, or a tree fell on him, or whatever. So uh, if this is a scenario where that's appropriate, ask them what they already know. Like they may have seen him get washed down the river. And then after they've said what they know, then you say, I'm afraid I have some bad news. And then you just state clearly, George has died. And you want to use the name, not a role. Your husband has died, your mother has died, your frog has died, your pet dog has died. You want to use the name because it honors who that person was. And you also want to use an active voice. Um, the fact that this person had a role in this, not that this person is dead. And then breathe, be calm, hold space, and say, I'm so sorry for your loss. And as they're taking this in, ask, do you have any questions? And they may ask things like, where is he? Or what happened to him? Or, a zillion other things. Or they may be really angry. How could this happen? And be screaming and hollering. Whatever it is, you listen and you echo back what they're saying. And there are so many things that people say when somebody has died that are the kind intentions of the uninformed. And you never want to do this. You don't want to break down sobbing in grief. People expect whoever the news bearer is to be this person who kind of has it together, to be clear, to be supportive, to be compassionate. And you don't want to add other things that are your interpretation about death or your attempts at encouragement when the person is right there in their grief. Somebody's child's died, and you say, well, you're still young, you can have another child. Nobody wants to hear that at that point. Or you might be one of those peeps who thinks, look on the bright side, well, your whole family didn't die. That's a terrible thing to say. Don't do this. And don't attach, some people may think, well, when somebody dies, it's like their little match went out and they're gone, they're nowhere. So if you happen to be someone who believes in heaven and you say to somebody, your mother is in heaven now, and that's not meaningful for them, it's jarring. So don't project your belief systems into their experience of grief. And you also can't assume, a lot of times people will say, oh, I know how you feel. This is really sad. You don't know how they feel. Don't say that. Breathe, hold space. What you do say is, I am sorry for your loss. Do you have any questions? Beyond these specific things, don't put more information in there. We do want to support and we do want to encourage. At this moment, most people will want to talk about their loved one. They may have remembrances. They'll say, oh, I remember when my child was born. Oh, I remember just yesterday when he was getting on his bicycle. Or, oh, I remember, the last conversation I had with George was blah, 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 blah. And so you want to listen. And allowing this, even if it's very sad, is part of allowing the grieving process to happen. And it's especially important in an off-the-grid scenario because people might be in shock, they might be in trauma in a situation where they can't access their grief. You want them to be able to be present in this moment to their valid feelings. So this is part of why we talked about how you don't want to go and show up in this conversation alone. You want to have somebody else there that can stay in continuity. You may have somebody else that you need to go talk to tell them about their family member that's died. And if so, then you can excuse yourself, so-and-so's going to stay here with you If you have questions, you can find me. I'm going to be standing over by the big tree later today. And then people will often want to hold the body. And again, you don't say, would you like to see the body? You want to say, George is over here on a blanket. So first of all, you have to ask, is it possible? I mean, sometimes people are in pieces. Sometimes they're underneath a big log. So you want to warn in advance, because people will say, take me to him. I want to see him. You want to warn them in advance if this is an issue. And if there's anybody who can kind of like clean the blood off their face, if somebody else can prepare the body or that scenario while you are having the conversation, if you can get somebody else to clean up the situation as much as possible, that's really, really helpful. And then when the family comes, if the eyes are still open, you want to ask if one of the family members would like to close the eyes or if they would like you to do it, and then you do it. And another thing that is very big, people worry about like wedding rings, family heirloom necklaces, and whatever jewelry somebody's got going on. In emergency situations, they don't want that to disappear. They don't want it to, maybe everybody doesn't know anybody and there's some strangers around here and they don't want anybody stealing stuff. Or this is something that helps them recognize an otherwise unrecognizable physical form. So make sure that that kind of stuff is visible to the extent that is possible. So I want to encourage you to practice end of life conversations. Get a buddy. Have somebody be the family and you be the person who tells them the scenario. Make up a scenario in your mind. Their dog died, their child died, their mother died, their brother died, their neighbor died, and their neighbor lived alone, and the neighbors are the closest thing you've got to family right now. And you have to ask them, did you know, does so-and-so have family elsewhere? Do you know how to contact them? And consider what you might have experienced in the past. So I probably the person in my life who was the closest to me was my grandmother. And I had had a conversation with her early on saying, what do you think's going to happen, when you die? And she had no spiritual beliefs at all. She said, I have no idea. And it's not an interesting question to me. And I said, well, I've talked to people who said that they knew that their family member had passed because they saw them or felt them or there was some communication. If it's possible before you go, can you say goodbye to me? And she said, I have no idea if that's possible, but I will try. If it's possible, then I will do that. And I thought, great. So then about 5 years later, a family member came to tell me in person, sat down with me, said, I have some bad news. Your grandmother has died. And I looked this person right in the eye and said, no, that can't be true. And the person said, why? And I said, because she told me that if she could, she would come say goodbye to me. And I didn't get a goodbye. So I don't believe she's gone. I mean, it was like an arnica denial state that was extreme. So think about how you might have responded in these conversations in the past and about what would have helped you. At that point, this family member that came to talk to me reached out and took my hands and looked in my eyes and said, I'm so sorry that you didn't get your goodbye, but she is gone. So, we want to get good at phrases that are clear and concrete and communicative. And we don't want to say anything that can be misunderstood. Your whoever it is has gone over the Rainbow Bridge or is in a better place now, and they may be thinking, Phoenix? You have to be absolutely clear using words like so and so has died. And that pretty much needs to be one of the last things that you say, because after that, it's their turn to talk, and they're not really going to hear anything you say after that. So I want to encourage you to practice this. Journal about any conversations you've had where you were informed that someone had passed away and how that could have been done better for you, or how you would do it for somebody else. And then again, make a commitment to be ready. We never know when an off the grid moment is going to happen. And so we want to be prepared.